the everlasting life. So thank the Lord. We just want to let your confidence be firm. We don't want you to go around with your mind in a great big question mark and never have the things settled that you ought to have settled of your requirements here in the sight of God. We don't want you just to follow the crowd here or be over-influenced by anybody. Everybody has some influence. Some have influence for good, some for bad. And if a person has an influence for good for you, and they're talking to you, and they're trying to help you, and point out the way, and if somebody loves you and cares for you, it would pay you to come under their influence and let them turn you from the wrong way and influence you to do right. But if anybody ever entices you, the first chapter of Proverbs says, if sinners entice thee, consent not to them. If they say, come go with us, let us put all of our things in one bag. He said, you better look well and be careful here that you don't just follow everything that comes along. Then the first chapter of Psalms, blessed is the man that walks not in the way of sinners. The way of sinners. That's not people out in the ungodly world. We ought to know better than copy after people out there. But right here in among the Pentecostal people and the church-going people, there's where we have to watch, because there's where the greatest deception lies. Is not in the deceivings of the world out there. They can cheat you out of your money. They can steal your virtue. They can take your property away from you through schemes of all time. But I'll tell you, when you put your soul on the block to gamble with, and let somebody gamble with that soul of yours, you're losing everything, mister. You're losing everything. You can afford to lose your house and still be saved. You can lose your furniture and your car. You can lose all your money and still be saved. But you can't lose that soul of yours and be saved. And so that's the thing we want to concentrate on. Zero right in. How is my soul getting along? How is my feeling, my set of feelings here? Not altogether my nerve ends here that feels like I'm feeling this Bible stand, but how do I feel in my nerves of my soul? Do I feel justified? Do I feel condemned? Do I feel satisfied? Am I conscientious? Do I really want to know? Have I got this thing clear, or am I just guessing at it? Do I go around with big question marks in my mind? Well, I'll tell you, we better hurry and settle down. And Peter said, after you have suffered a while, then he said, the Lord will strengthen and settle you. After you've suffered a while, the Lord make you perfect, and then strengthen, establish. Heaven, you don't pay it all together with dollars and cents, however. That's a part of it. That isn't all of it. You can't buy yourself in this unless buying is the only last thing in your life, and that's the last thing to give up. But it's costing us to lay down this Adamic nature that has been corrupted, polluted. It's been played with by the devil. He has inserted his devilish life and his rebellion against God into the human family through the fall back there. And then we all came from the loins and body of Adam and Eve here. And they were corrupted. They were defiled. And of course, when their bodies gave birth to an offspring, they passed something more than the color of their hair and the color of their eyes and the shape of their body. They passed something more on to Cain and Abel and those girls over there. They passed something more than that. But they passed a nature that had been corrupted by the devil. They passed that clean, pure, innocent condition they were in. They passed that on with a guilt hanging over it, with a penalty hanging over it. And we've been under that penalty and curse ever since. But Jesus came and battled that. He overcame all that pollution. He was born in a sinful body just like you had. And the same nature that Adam and Eve had, Jesus had that nature. But also he had another nature. And the heavenly nature from his father that came from the seed of his father was battling against the seed of the woman there in his flesh. And by him learning what to do and how to act and the method to use, he conquered the flesh. He conquered that contact that the devil had with everybody's soul. The devil's got a contact with your soul through your body senses and through your mind. And when you get that mind free from the devil and you get out from under the influence of the devil, then of course your soul comes alive in Jesus Christ. And if you can get that done before you die, you can sing the old song, when my body's sleeping in the cold, cold clay, I'll live on, I'll live on, because you'll have what it takes to have everlasting life. So we must become firm here. And you have a right to know. You have a right to know. Don't be bashful about asking questions. Write all the questions you want to and send them in here. Or rise up and ask a question. And we'll mull it over. We'll think it over and see whether it's worthwhile for us to spend time on or not. But don't be ashamed to ask questions. Don't be afraid. Don't think that you're exposing your ignorance. You're exposing your interest to us when you ask a question. I don't care how simple it may be. We want you to thoroughly understand, really understand what this movement is all about. Why us preachers have been preaching as long as we have. Why that we have bucked the storms of life here. And while we keep on your level. And don't forget that we're not above you when it comes to overcoming. We have to pay the same price that you pay. And we're under more obligation than you because we're your leaders. We're your teachers. And there's over 100 woes in the Bible pronounced on leaders that doesn't lead right. And I'm afraid of those woes. I'm afraid of them. And I'm afraid to go wrong because I don't only lose my own soul, but I influence others and cause them to be lost. So you see, we're a very sincere, conscientious body of preachers sitting here on this platform. And Paul told Timothy, being an older minister, farther along, and having a higher position in the ministry than Timothy had, he warned him to take heed to the things that he had learned. And remember where you got these things that I taught you from a child. Here's just a young man that came up around Paul's ministry. And his mother and his grandmother were supporters of the work over there. And Paul told Timothy, said, you take heed to the things that you've learned. For by so doing, he said, you'll save yourself and you'll save them that hear you. In other words, Timothy, if you get too smart, exalt yourself above the older ministers. If you go out on a tangent and all of your own, and you'd sever yourself from the rest of the body, and you won't listen, he said, you'll damn yourself. And you'll damn everybody that follows you because you'll lead them astray and you'll teach them lies and philosophies out of your own mind. And here the rest of the preachers in the body is teaching the true doctrine. Here, Timothy, you'll be off to one side holding a little group of people over there, fooling them, pulling the wool over their eyes, just like we've got some preachers that's hung around this body for years and hung around Brother Sowders. But they never did blend with the body. And John run across the same condition in his day when he said, these men was among us. They were set among us. They sat on the platform. They got up and talked. They brought an offering, and they sang songs, and they mixed and mingled, in so much that the saints of God didn't know a false preacher from a true preacher. They just looked at the platform and accepted every man sitting up there, and they didn't realize we had crooks sitting on the platform. They didn't realize that we had men harboring ulterior motives and secret things that they were going to do the first chance they got. You couldn't see that. But all you saw was a bunch of preachers sitting up there, clapping their hands, singing, looking out over the crowd. And we just took for granted, well, they're a preacher, they're on the platform, and there's Brother Sowders, and here's the rest of the preachers here. But there was something going on in some of these men's lives that it took time to reveal. It didn't all come out in one meeting. It took years for the wrong motive to develop into a rebellion. And I've often said, you better watch what you keep in your heart and treasure in your mind. You better be careful what kind of a secret ambition that you have in you. You better be careful how you keep a seed alive down in there that says, when I get a chance, I'm going to do something else. I'm going to go another direction. And there's people, it's preachers that just sit around with things like that on their mind. There's people like that lion in the cage looking for a way out all the time. Well, if you're looking for a way out, you're going to find it pretty soon, because there's only one way into the kingdom of God, but there's 5 ways out of it. And you find the one way to get in. Remember, there's 5 ways for you to get out of here if you want to go out. And if you want to escape those 5 avenues of escape, you better stay in the one way that you came in and stay in the body of Jesus Christ. So I watched these brethren over a number of years. I've been on the job a long time. You've seen my face around a long time. And I wasn't asleep, I want you to know. And I just waited. I laid things up on the shelf and I said, well, I'll watch that. I'll see. I'll just lay it over there and I'll give it time. And the Lord told me when I came into this, He said, you're going to be here a long time. God from heaven told me that, walking across Dewey Avenue, 21st and Dewey in Granite City, Illinois, 53 years ago. The Lord said to me, be careful how you act and what you do. You're going to be with this people a long time.